Hey guys, Dwayne here. Today I want to talk about fighting back. I need to provide a little bit of clarification to this because I think in a lot of my previous videos, I'm talking from the perspective of being where I am now, 4.5, pushing 5 years into this scenario. And I don't, or at least I haven't in recent videos talked about the steps I had to take to fight back to get to the point that I am now. And I think it's important for me to cover that because some of that gets lost. And I think whenever people are starting out in this, and if you're listening to some of what I'm talking about and you haven't watched some of my older videos, you're missing that part of the piece of the puzzle to where you do have to set boundaries and basically establish the rules of the game that you're actually playing with your ex. And it's not really a game, but the critically important thing is that you have to choose your battles. You cannot fight everything. You have to determine what is important for you, what is a reoccurring problem that you have to address. It may feel like you want to fight everything, but you really have to pick your battles and decide what is the right thing to go after. And the reason I say that is because everything is a calculated risk. Everything that you're doing on this has risk. Every action that you take will have or potentially will have a consequence to it. And sometimes you don't even understand what those consequences might be. Everything is a calculated risk. You have to realize right off the bat that every time you fight your ex, there is a risk associated with it on what is going to happen, what the consequence will be, what the reaction will be, and what the total outcome of it will be. So everything you do is going to have a consequence. But sometimes you have to push back. Sometimes you have to establish that boundary and basically push back to the ex so that they know that what your boundaries really are. And what that means is that doesn't just mean being tit for tat arguing with them, because that's not going to accomplish anything. That's where you escalate it to a point where you are really driving that point home. Okay, and rolling into that, it's all about what is your point and making that point. You have to see the victory for what it's worth. What I mean by that is, you have to basically have a reasonable expectation of what the victory will be. You can have a total victory, and then you need to know when you need to stop and when did you actually achieve the goal, because there's various steps in this, and you need to know what is the action or the result you're really trying to get and focus on that. Now, you may have a minimal goal and the absolute victory of what you would like to have, but you need to have that set of what you're actually trying to achieve, so you know when to stop and you know whenever you did get what you need, and to basically declare victory and move on. In my examples, I have a couple of issues, or about 4 issues I'm going to talk about today, where I did have to fight back. And the first one was right in the beginning of this. The ex made unilateral changes to custody. This was right before we actually went to court. This was, we had already had a tentative visitation plan set up for about a month and a half. And she, one day, when I went to pick up the kids, unilaterally decided, the kids being around you, it's killing them, and you cannot be around my kids anymore except for the weekends. Obviously, I had to fight on that. That was actually at the stage that I still had an attorney, and we were still doing the initial separation, and then ultimately it turned into a divorce. But there was a pushback to that. My attorney immediately sent messages to her attorney saying it needed to go back the way it was, and all that other judicial theater that happens. But again, that was one of the first things I had to do, where I was pushing back, saying, no, you don't get to make all the unilateral decisions. It doesn't work that way, and that's not the way it's going to be. The next issue was her trying to make sole custody type decisions for medical purposes, for therapy for the kids, for my son actually. And again, it was one of those things where I had to fight back and demonstrate to her that she didn't just get to make unilateral decisions anymore. Now, the next issue, and this was about 1.5 years into it, and if you watch some of the other videos, I've already talked about this, but where she was not paying medical bills. And I'm not saying that the medical bills were coming to me and that I was ignoring them. They were coming to her, she was ignoring them, and then when they finally went to collections, it was only then that she would write my name, and send it back to him and say, oh, you need to go after this, you need to go after this guy. This is his address, this is his name. Go find him because he has money. I'm not going to pay you. He'll pay you. And, and then they started coming after me. So what I ended up doing is I sued her in small claims court. Some of you may be saying, well, small claims court, why'd you do that? The main reason I did that is I did not want to walk back into family court, and I did not want to open Pandora's box to do it. Plus, small claims court, you don't necessarily have to hire an attorney. You can do it yourself, basically via self-help. And it was the best means I could come up with to hold her accountable for the medical bills that she wasn't paying, to basically tell her this has got to stop. Now, I had tried to talk to her previously. I'd sent emails. I tried to communicate with her, to no avail. There was no, I wasn't able to achieve any result with that. And in retrospect, I get it, right? Because this was a petty little power play where she knew because of my employment I would have to pay it, and she was messing with me, and she was doing a pretty good job of it. What I did is I took a step back, found a way to fight it without, burning the house down, so to speak, and I took her to small claims court. Now, on that, we went to court. The judge, started the whole proceeding, said, I'm going to send all you guys to mediation, in the beginning, and if you don't come up with agreement, then I get to make the agreement, and you may not like it, right? So anyways, when we went to mediation, the first thing the mediator said is, well, why, this is a family court issue. And I'm like, no, I don't care about the family court issue. I have a court order that says she's supposed to pay half these bills. Here's $800, I think, and what it was, and bills are, $1,600. I said, she owes me $800. She hasn't been paying. I'm getting sick of getting collection notices. This has to stop. So I want my money, and I want her to start paying. Now, this goes back, remember when I was talking before about the different goals. Now, my ultimate goal was for her to pay her half and to pay in the future. Now, guys, I would have loved to walk out of there with a check or an order for her to actually pay me that money. Obviously, that didn't happen. She came in and said that, she had her own bills that she never told me about, and, whatever. But at the end of the day, I left that day with a signed mediated agreement that said, or a binding mediated agreement that said that she would follow the court order. Now, I've talked about this in other videos in the past. I know it sounds ridiculous, but now I basically that binding mediated agreement basically said or stated that we both would follow the rules as set forth in the court order, the family court order. It's ridiculous, but what I wanted, my minimum victory was I wanted another court order that said she was going to already follow the court order that we already had, and I wanted going forward that she was going to pay her half of the medical bills. Now, it worked, right? Since that was I think 2 years ago, and now she may be late. I know I've mentioned this before. She may be late sometimes in paying, but I have so far been paid for half of everything. I think in the last 2 years, I've had to pay her a couple of months, and every other month, or not every other, all the other months, the majority, 90% of all the months, she's had to pay me, and she has. I have a nice little stack of checks that I'm keeping as a souvenir. I've also cashed them, but, so I achieved that goal. But there was a consequence. And what happened is right after that, she filed for my retirement plan. There was a problem with our court order, or our family court order, where the dates were wrong, where we took money out to pay bills, and they were going to give her 100% of what was actually more than. There technically wasn't enough money to give her everything that she was entitled to per the faulty court order. So I had to immediately hire an attorney, try to do an emergency stop to get them to stop issuing the money. They finally ultimately put a hold on it and stopped it until we had a new court order that clearly defined what she was entitled to. And again, I could have rolled over on that, but I didn't. I fought her on it. And some of the, when we're going through this, sometimes we have to take a stand. And I wanted to talk about this because in reading some of the comments and I just taking a step back with what I've been saying lately, I can see that I have been talking really from the context of where I am now. And I haven't in the last few weeks brought up or mentioned some of these fights that I had to do to basically set the foundation to where I am today. So when I'm talking about doing the hybrid no contact and minimizing your interaction and not engaging, I'm not saying that you let the other person walk all over you. I mean, when they're violating visitation issues and they're dealing with money issues that aren't right, and they're ignoring and violating major portions of your family court order, you have no choice but to fight back. And it's tough, right? I mean, it's tough and expensive, and you really have to choose how you're going to do it. Now, sometimes you might be able to fight back just with threats that you're going to hold them accountable. And if that doesn't work, then you ultimately get stuck in a situation where you have to basically involve the legal system, the family court system, or whatever it is in your particular country. And there are some viewers on this who have actually had to do this or in the process of doing this, where their ex has pushed the issue on primarily as visitation, where they are forced to go back to court and get it resolved. I came close to that situation for one of the holidays, where my ex basically decided that she was going to do something completely different, and that was against the court order. And basically the argument back and forth was, if you do this, I will have to, basically call the cops. And she ultimately backed down, but that was like a 3 week, I think, maybe 2 week argument back and forth to finally get that result. But bottom line is I just don't want you guys to think that what I'm saying is you're just rolling over on these issues and just letting them do whatever they want. That is not what I'm saying. You absolutely have to fight back. You just can't fight back on everything. And then once you finally get to a baseline where everything is relatively stable, then you roll into the hybrid no contact, minimizing your interaction, and focusing on your kids. But if you have them constantly basically harassing you and manipulating you with money and visitation, unfortunately, you have to do something about that. Okay, so I hope that clarifies this. I wanted to get this out because I felt that I hadn't addressed this issue in a while and it needed to be revisited. If you have some questions or whatever, leave them in the comments below. I do have some other situations I've gone through that if you guys are interested in hearing about, where I've made decisions where the consequences were not so great, that I had to pay, that cost me, quote unquote. If you guys want to hear about that, let me know and in the comments, and I can make another video on that. And on that, I will talk to you guys on the next video. Take care. Bye.